All right, welcome back, everybody, to Eagles Power Hour, your Eastern Washington affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Patrick Frakes. We're brought to you by Walk On Apparel, and we have a special guest here to talk Idaho State football. We have Franklin Spicer. He's an Idaho State student. He contributes on the Jungleland podcast. I believe you guys are now in the Big Sky Podcast Network, talking Idaho State athletics. Franklin, how are you doing tonight?
Been pretty good, just ready to talk some ISU football, preview the Eastern game. So really excited.
Yeah. So this seems like a matchup like it's crazy that for the first time in a long time, Eastern is the one coming into this matchup with like the not as good record. I think Idaho State's 5-5 coming into this game, Eastern 3-7. I have not seen a line. It's kind of like interesting. Like, is this the first time in a long time where Idaho State has a legit gripe to be favored against Eastern Washington? And after last year, I wouldn't shock me. So, um, but let's just talk generally about Idaho State's season so far. Kind of how have they gotten to this point? They're a 5-5 team right now, right in the middle of the pack in the Big Sky. What's your take on kind of how Idaho State has gotten to this point so far?
Well, yeah, we start off with a second-year coach. Cody Hawkins comes in last year, takes team 3-8 with three conference wins, one of them being Eastern. And then, he just hit the ground running in the summer. Offseason, he hired his dad as an assistant coach. Not with a coaching role, but more of an administrative role. But he's definitely there coaching. He calls plays sometimes. He focuses on the special teams a lot, kicker development and just development of all the players. And second year coach, he's hit the ground running, got some good recruits going in there. And so one of them being one of the key players of the Idaho State football team his name is Kobe Tracy. We switched away from that 2 quarterback system that we're working last year. A lot of controversy in the Big Sky right now, especially at Montana. You don't win with the 2 quarterback system. And I feel like that's one of the things that we fixed. So we got Kobe Tracy, a Utah Tech transfer, as a senior year. Pretty sure it's his last year of eligibility. And he's coming there, one of the passing leaders in the Big Sky behind Miles Hastings. And, we just, built on that passing offense a little bit. And we also got some little run game in there as well. And, played Southern Utah. It was a good competitive game. A lot of these wins are really neck and neck. I don't think we've had like a serious win that over like 2 scores, unless you're talking about Western Oregon, which is a D2 team that we played in one at home. And, just Big Sky, we got a win against Cal Poly, another neck and neck game against a good team, a Cal Poly team that's on the rise. They got some pretty good recruiting and slow. And, who else have we beat? We got Weber State last week, first time that we beat Weber and Ogden in 40 years. It was a really historical game for us. We haven't beat them in 10 years, period. So, end those streaks of, having that away win come first time in 40 years and then just beating Weber in 10 years, then a game against Sacramento State as well. We had just one overtime game against Sac State. And a lot of close games too, close loss to Portland State, very close loss to NAU with a couple controversial calls. But this year we're looking a lot better. We got some more action on our offense, with the running game, with the inclusion of 4 running backs who are kind of all around the same, one of them being an Eastern transfer. His name's Justice Jackson. He likes to leap in the end zone every once in a while. And everything has just been an improvement. Our passing offense, I think the biggest key would be the passing game with our QB Kobe Tracy, coming in there.
Yeah, and my comparison for this Idaho State team is this is like an old school Bo Baldwin style of team. They're gonna throw the ball a lot. They want to throw the ball. Last year, they were running the ball like maybe 8 times a game. Sometimes, like it was nothing but throwing the ball. This year, it's been a little bit more balanced. It's still very heavily pass, but it's more like that Bo Baldwin style where it's the pass to set up the run, They're going to be, and they're going to have 4 wide receivers on the field most of the time, a pretty talented wide receiver core. And they're going to cause some matchup issues for you. They got a lot of big receivers that will, if you have a 5'10" corner on a guy like Christian Fredrickson or Weimer, I don't know how to say his name. I think it's Jeff Weimer. If you have a shorter corner on those guys, good luck, because if the ball is above their head, they're going to come down with it. It's a very much offense first team, though. The defense has been lacking this year, but it really, I felt like it's taken a bit of a step up from last year, even kind of similar to Eastern. Like Eastern's defense has been bad, but you can see some of the improvements just physicality wise. I feel like I've felt the same way about Idaho State. Like they definitely seem like a team that's trending upward right now. And like you said, they've competed with everyone. Now they haven't necessarily played the same. Like the strength of schedule isn't quite the same as Eastern's right now, but I mean, hey, they competed with Montana State for a good half of that game. They beat Southern Utah, who's a team that's right on the brink of being a ranked team. Competed with NAU to the end. They're ranked again this week. You got Weber again, like these teams that are kind of frisky teams. Obviously, like Weber, Sac State have not been the same level of team, but Idaho State's beating these teams and they haven't done that in the past. This Idaho State team is probably the best version of Idaho State I can remember seeing in my lifetime. So it's an impressive team. So this is no Idaho State of the past where if you're an Eastern fan, you remember, oh, Idaho State's coming to town. Cool, homecoming or something that week, because you can kind of expect the win. That is not the same team this year. So I'm going to throw it to you here, kind of talk about, we kind of hit on some of the offensive style stuff, but who are the big main contributors? I mentioned a few of them already, but stylistically, what's this offense like and what are the things to watch out for if you're an Eastern fan?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, mostly we pass the ball. It's that's primarily what we do. Like I said, we do have a little bit of run game, but on our offensive side for passing, our quarterback Kobe Tracy, he's only been sacked like 6 or 7 times this year. So our offensive line is doing a pretty good job at protecting him. And he's like 20 touchdowns for like 6 interceptions. Let me check that real fast. Um, yeah, he's at 20 touchdowns for 6 interceptions in the season, with a few rushing touchdowns. Our biggest wide receivers are probably going to be Jeff Weimer, a UNLV transfer, just from this last season. He is a route technician. He gets out there, he's quick, and he's a lot of the time he's just wide open. And so you want a guy, if Eastern wants a chance to kind of get on him. You got to put their best guy in him. But then if they put their best guy in him, you got Christian Fredrickson out there as well, who's I mean, I want to say he's like the most, athletic, capable guy. But I mean, he's a competitor. He's going to be open. He's going to be clutch in those clutch moments. 3rd down and 12 to go. You can almost guarantee that ball is going to Christian Fredrickson. So we got 2 really good wide receivers put in there with a lot of other receivers as well, just like Shulikov. We got a really deep receiver room this year. But we like to spread a ball a lot more. And so you'll see like Ian Duarte going in there, Michael Shulikov, and some other guys as well. For our run game, our main rusher is Dason Brooks. He's been on the team for a while. He switched from the linebacker position to the running back position just this year. And then, I mean, I wouldn't say any of the rushers are like too much better than the other. I mean, they're all on pretty much the same level. I mean, last game against Weber State, we didn't see much from Dason Brooks, but we saw a lot more from Donald Austin and Cowie Kioy. I'm sure that's how you say his name, Cowie. Yeah, we have those 3 guys, and they're really like pound it to the ground, type rushers. They're short, they're quick, and they like to see the end zone quite a bit, as well as Justice Jackson, who's been in there a few times. He's the Eastern transfer, and he all 4 of those guys have the ability to make good plays.
Right, and you hit on the receiving core, which is the matchup that I'm looking at as an Eastern fan that has me a little worried, right? 3 of the 4 starting receivers are over 6'2" tall.
Yep.
And that is going to be a big deal for an Eastern team that they don't necessarily have much size in the secondary. Well, some of our starting safeties are like 5'9". Like there's a little bit of a worry there if I'm Eastern. Just Eastern hasn't necessarily like been just totally out talented by teams this year. Like there hasn't been a ton of plays where Eastern's just getting blown off the ball. Guys are just making these crazy catches over their head. This is one of those teams that like you could see it. If we have one of our freshman DBs in there, they're just gonna throw it at them and just see what happens because they have three guys that I like their chances in a 50-50 ball over Eastern's corner. Jeff Weimer, Shulikov, and Fredrickson, all just big body, really good ball skills, go get the ball. And that's a little bit worrying. Then you have a guy like Duarte who's a little bit speedier that, he seems to me he seems a little bit more of a big play threat just because he's quick. And, the other guys, they're big play threats just because they catch the really crazy contested catches.
Hmm.
This team is going to stay, they're going to keep, four receivers on the field almost always. It seems like a lot of the time they motion out the running back out of the backfield and they go from a 4 wide to a 5 wide looking set. And they kind of get you into matchup situations where you have a linebacker on the running back too. And so they do a good job of they use all five receivers effectively and give their guys a chance at making a play, getting open in space, a lot of shorter passes that kind of replace the run game. Again, it's a really similar to a Bo Baldwin style of offense. And if you're an Eastern fan, the secondary has been sketchy so far this year. That is a huge thing to watch out for. Can Eastern even slightly slow down this Bengal offense, who has been really they've been one of the better total offenses in the league. They're fifth in scoring offense, total offense. They're fifth as well. Like they've been pretty dang good, and so a lot of what matters with that is how is the quarterback playing that day. Because I have noticed like Kobe Tracy has his off days,
Hmm.
but there's a pretty he recently has been on more often than he's off, and you have to assume if you're Eastern that he's going to be on. You also have Hunter Hayes that'll come in every once in a while in the red zone, and he runs a little bit more, but it's not like a Jared Taylor versus Kiko Vesperis situation. It's like, Hunter Hayes is a little bit. He's been around Idaho State more. He's a little bit bigger, has a little bit more meat on his bones, and so he'll run the ball every once in a while as well. He'll come in kind of as almost like a change of pace quarterback. Sounds kind of goofy, but um,
Yeah, for
that
sure.
that's
I mean,
most of
Hunter
the
Hayes is tough.
offense
He's from Wyoming.
for
He's a
real.
Cowboy, so he goes in there. He has the ability to run the ball, but he throws the ball pretty well. For Kobe Tracy, I mean, yeah, it really depends on what take he has. Last two games have been pretty good. He threw 2 interceptions at Sacramento State. Those interceptions were just really tough. Bounce off the helmet, and just a receiver just drop. Really lucky interceptions. But like at NAU, he's having a hard time. Uh, that I mean, if he's on, he's really good. Like last week at Weber, he threw like 60 something percent, no interceptions, 4 touchdowns. So uh, I think if he has a good on day, it's going to be a great game for ISU. And then off, I think we still got Hunter Hayes back there, to kind of help him out a bit, pull some slack.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
just flat out, it's one of the better offenses in the Big Sky, in my opinion. It's one of the more effective offenses, and it's like even if they're not playing very good that day, they're still going to score 20 plus, probably. Most likely, even if they're down by a lot, they're going to score 20 plus.
Yep.
Which leads us to more of the weakness of this Bengals squad, the defense. I'm going to throw it to you here. What have you seen from the Bengal defense, and kind of what are they like stylistically, and how have they been so far this year? I know it's been up and down.
Yeah. I mean, the defense is just like you have their good days, you have your bad days. We've kind of suffered through a bit of injury this year. With our team captain Cortland Horton being injured for a while. I think he came back last game, and then Calvin Pitcher being out for a while. But we do have some really good linebackers. We do get quite a bit of sacks. I feel like we're really good in the pass game. I think the biggest struggle is just going to be the run game. When we play Portland State, Dante Sastre, he's that running, run pass quarterback. And I mean, if he can't find the spot, he's just going to run it and get some yards. And so sorry, I feel like the run game kind of lacks the run defense, but pass game's all right. I mean, it's a Big Sky game. Big Sky defenses this year are not really doing, too hot. Montana, you got Eastern Washington, Northern Colorado, Portland State, all being down there just with us, at the lower end. And so it's more of an offensive game, but it's gonna be a weak defensive game. It's gonna be cold out there too. So you know, those hits are going to hurt. It's going to be hard to intercept the ball. Idaho State doesn't get a lot of takeaways on defense, except for fumbles, which we surprisingly get a lot more often than you would think. I think we have more fumbles than interceptions this year. So there's a fun stat for you.
Yeah, and like you said, like the rushy defense for Idaho State has been it's been bad this year, flat out, and they've shown some improvements in physicality, in my opinion. That's just what I saw on film, but they're still running a kind of a hybrid 3-3-5, 4-2-5 style of defense where they like to stunt, they like to blitz, they like to try to kind of cause chaos and confuse your offensive lines, which has led to them being able to get a decent amount of pressure on quarterbacks, but it opens up some massive running lanes. And a big matchup to watch out here is Eastern's the number 2 rushing team in the conference this year. Right behind Montana State, there's an ocean between Montana State's production and Eastern Washington's production, but Eastern's averaging over 200 yards per game on the ground, and they're probably going to try to run it pushing 40 to 50 times in this game if they can. On the contrary, like you said, Idaho State's passing defense has been honestly one of the better in the Big Sky. Part of that is probably because the rushing defense just hasn't been very good. So, the teams have been able to lean on the run game a lot more, and there's probably more consistent for them. But I mean, Idaho State's number 3 passing defense by yardage in the conference. They're averaging, they're holding teams under 250 yards and through the air, which is, better than average in the Big Sky this year. Maybe better than average isn't necessarily the same level we're used to in the Big Sky this year, but they're not an atrocious pass defense. Kind of similar to last year's Eastern squad a little bit in that way. Like, the can't stop a soul on the ground, but through the air, they're pretty dang solid. And so you got to think that Eastern's going to be leaning on the run game pretty heavily come Saturday. Do you have anything else more to add for the defense?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much from the defense. I mean, we do pull a lot of blitzes, stunts, and everything, but I mean, the run game is just we got to be able to stop that. I mean, Southern Utah, they got Targi Lamson. He's one of the leading rushers in the FCS, and when we're able to like focus in on one player or one guy, try to stop that one game, make him play their second hand, we can do a good job. But I mean, I feel like we got to play a lot more balance because Efton Chisholm he should be a Walter Payton finalist. I mean, he's doing great this season. He's definitely a threat to our defense. So we got to learn to definitely hit both of those like rushing and then passing defense strategies this game.
Yeah, and the third phase of the game that I often kind of ignore just because I don't think about it as often, special teams. I think it could be pretty important in this game. I think it's gonna be a pretty close game, and Eastern has had their ups and downs on special teams. Generally, it's been a lot better than we've seen in the Coach Best era. Idaho State has been they've been okay. They've been a good field goal kicking team, but
Mhm.
the kick coverage hasn't been top of the Big Sky necessarily. It's kind of an interesting matchup. I wonder if um, Eastern has put a ton of emphasis on special teams this week in practice. Just walking by,
Mhm.
every time I walk by, they're working on special teams this week. I don't know. Maybe it's just weird timing. I wonder if special teams is going to have a bigger impact on this game than we expect. Especially, I mean, Eastern has, Michael Wortham's been probably. I mean, I'd say this year he's been the best kickoff returner in the conference,
Mhm.
even over a guy like, Junior Bergen, who was a first team All American last year. Mike Wortham's way out producing him this year. So I wonder if that is something that's going to have a bigger impact on this game than people may think when they see, two, pretty high flying offenses. I think special teams will have a big impact on this game. You have anything else to add before we hear a word from our sponsor?
Yeah, I mean, I can go with special teams a little bit. I would argue to say that ISU has the best special teams in the conference, especially where you got the field goal kicker. He hasn't missed. Gabe Panikowski hasn't missed a field goal all season. He's hit like 3 50-yarders in games. I think he's 15 for 15. He has missed extra points, 2 of those being against Weber State. Sometimes people have their off days. But I mean, just the reliability of him being able to kick game winners against Cal Poly and be able to, sink in those 50-plus yard field goals is really, really great. And then we have Ross Bolger, one of our punters. He was I think he's got like 3 Big Sky Special Teams Player of the Week awards this season already, 2 or 3. But he's a really good punter. He can punt far. I think the biggest threat to Eastern or any team when Idaho State's on special teams is definitely their trick plays. I mean, this year I think we ran like 3 fake punts already, and each one had been converted. We really busted a play up on a fake punt so far this year. Our return game, not really as strong. We don't really average many yards, but definitely just the kicking and the special plays, the fake punts. There were anytime you play Idaho State or Dan Hawkins in general, just got to be looking out for that fake because that's his specialty is trick plays. So.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. And trick plays have worked against Eastern this year, I will say. Idaho State's one of those teams that goes for it on 4th down a ton. So would not be shocking to see them be aggressive on 4th down either. Oh wait, I gotta hit our sponsor. I almost forgot. Eagles Power Hour is sponsored by Walk On Apparel. Walk On Apparel focuses on capturing Eastern's culture and traditions in apparel designs that are as different as they are affordable, plus 10% of the profit from every sale gets donated right back to the Eagle Athletic Fund. That's a win for you and your alma mater. EPH listeners get 10% off Eastern gear at checkout using code EPH10. That's EPH10. New designs drop throughout the season, so go check out walkon-apparel.com. Follow them on Twitter and Instagram, and go check out what's dropping next. All right. Let's roll this into keys to the game because I'm interested to see kind of what your takes are on this game. I'm having a hard time figuring out what I think is going to happen. I think this game is going to be a close, high-scoring game. I think it could be similar to that ISU Portland State game where kind of whoever got the ball last was going to win that game. Kind of what are some of your major keys to this game?
I think definitely what we want to do, it's going to be cold. I mean, it's Cheney, Washington, really close to like Canada, basically Canada. We joke that Moscow's in Canada, but Cheney's even farther north. It's going to be really cold. So the passing game is going to be really tough. Catching frozen football is never something that you want to do, when you play catch or whatnot. And so I think that we definitely need keys to the game is Idaho State needs to lock on to the rushing game, rely on their running game, look for some good lanes and, lean more on that than they would the passing game as they normally would. And then on defense, just got to step up during the 3rd downs. It feels like almost every game we play, we get those 1 and 2 stops. It goes to 3rd down and we're getting loud, we're getting hype. And then all of a sudden, they break through, they get that 1st down, 6-yard play. And so locking in on 3rd downs and, relying more on the running game against Eastern Washington. And also another key to the game is not get 41-14. You don't want to be losing in that 3rd quarter and all of a sudden, they come back and win it. So hold on to your lead, especially since the recent memory of the game has been some comebacks, good 4th quarters.
Yeah, no, that this series, it feels like even when Eastern was just like they're a really good team and Idaho State was not a very good team, like these two teams always seem to play, especially in Pocatello, those games are always wild. Like you never knew what the heck was going to happen for some reason. Don't like weird things happen in Pocatello. But you hit on the weather. It's not necessarily forecasted for like right during the game, but right towards the end of the game, I'm looking at the forecast right now. 35% chance of snow as we get later into the night when the temperature goes down. Probably won't happen at 1, but at kickoffs at 1, but um, it that could be a kind of an interesting factor. I think it would be fun if we get a little bit of a snow game. But um, my biggest key to this game is for Eastern to have a chance to win this game. They have to slow down the explosive plays. Idaho State's maybe they're not like built on being explosive, but they're a fast pace, a lot of tempo, a lot of go go go. And we've seen Eastern have a lot of issues with tempo offenses. And I remember in the Monmouth game earlier this year, even a game that Eastern honestly dominated for most of that game. Like as soon as Monmouth went to tempo, Eastern had some big time issues. And I don't really think Eastern's played another. They haven't really played like another team that's as tempo and as high paced as this Idaho State team. Eastern has to limit the explosive plays, and they can't be giving up big 30-yard gashes like we've seen from time to time when teams go to that tempo. If Eastern can limit the explosive plays and just kind of do what they do on the ground, I think Eastern has a pretty good chance at winning this game. But that's a big if. You have to limit the explosive plays in this game. Another one, I feel like I say this for every single game of all time, but Eastern has really struggled to force turnovers this year. I feel like Idaho State has kind of struggled to force turnovers too. I think like if one team forces a turnover, it will be huge in this game. Like if one team could force a turnover and actually take advantage of it, that could be a massive swing in momentum. That I see this game as being a game where neither team can get a dang stop until like the fourth quarter. If that turnover is that stop and gives a team an extra possession and lets them flip the who's ahead in the back and forth, that could be huge, kind of like we saw with when Eastern went for the onside kick versus Sac State. Similar style of thing. I have a feeling that Eastern's going to try something to give them an extra possession to flip that lead back. I have a feeling Idaho State's going to want to do the same thing, take advantage of those plays and get yourself ahead in the back and forthness, get a important stop. I think that team that does that is going to win this game. All right. Do you have any more things to add for keys to the game?
Yeah, not really. I mean, turnovers are going to matter a lot. Bottom of the Big Sky, a lot of games are, a lot of wins are because of turnovers. I mean, Idaho State got 3 turnovers against Sacramento State 2 weeks ago, and I think that was a huge factor. I mean, we prevented them from scoring twice, and one of those turnovers we returned for a touchdown. So, yeah, turnovers is going to be really big, really important in this game.
For sure, and it should be. I have a feeling that's going to be a really fun to watch game. Don't know how like big the crowd's going to be if it's kind of cruddy weather and Eastern's 3-7, but it should be a fun game to actually watch. So I do recommend people go even if the weather's crappy because it should be entertaining offensive, high flying offense type of game, as long as weather doesn't get too crazy. All right. Let's transition this into picking the Big Sky. Patty's picks is what I like to call it. We got a full 6-game slate this week. Honestly, a pretty fun slate. That I feel like we have a lot of games that could be relatively close. Let's start this with probably the least interesting one. And there's 2 pretty uninteresting ones in my opinion. We'll start it with the most least interesting. Sacramento State goes to Cal Poly. What are you thinking?
I mean, Sacramento State's not that good of a team this year. Their coach is Andy Smith. I'm pretty sure that's his
Andy
name.
Thompson.
Sorry?
Andy Thompson.
Andy Thompson. Yeah, I just don't think he's that guy this year. 2 years ago, they had their coach. He left for Stanford. He brought that team some Big Sky championships. Last year, I mean, it just felt like they were rolling off of, the previous coaches, guys that they had in. Those were players, recruiting, their style. This year, they just don't seem that team this year. They lost to Portland State, lost to ISU. They only have a few wins. I would say that there might be, next to Northern Colorado for that worst team in the Big Sky for like power rankings. Cal Poly on the rise. I mean, Cal Poly's, performed a lot better. They were in it with Montana for at least one half. And so, especially in San Luis Obispo, I definitely think Cal Poly just takes that game. I have nothing else to to say, I mean, Cal Poly gave a tougher fight against Idaho State, especially on defense, and Idaho State barely got that one out, with a game-ending field goal. And so I think Cal Poly goes over Sacramento State, takes the Hornets. Team on the rise.
Really, I see.
Yeah.
I'm My thing with Sac State is they seem like a team with so much more talent than they're showing to me. They seem
Hmm.
like a team with, to me, I think, Eastern, Weber, and Sac State are the three teams that have talent on their teams to probably be playoff teams, and they are just getting outcoached by teams that have less talent than them.
Hmm.
Or in the case, I mean, Eastern's been outcoached, but in the case of like Eastern, they've had just a gauntlet of a schedule. Weber's just giving games away. Sac State is giving games away. I think Sac State is just. I think Sac State is a different level talent wise than Cal Poly right now. So I think Sac State is going to win this game. If they lose this game, I think Andy Thompson's seat starts getting a little warm. If
Yeah.
you inherit a team that won the Big Sky, they won the Big Sky like 3 times in a year, 3 times in a row. If you go from that to losing to Portland State, Idaho State, Cal Poly in 3 of your last 4 weeks, that is a really bad look if you're a head coach that inherited a Big Sky championship level program. Um, I think Sac State wins this game, and I think I don't necessarily see it being a really, really close game at the end of it. I think Sac State's going to be able to pull away a little bit, but I do see it being a competitive game for about a half. I just think Sac State has more in the tank that they haven't shown at this point in the season. Usually teams don't necessarily
Hmm.
like bring out that extra juice, but I think I cannot bring myself to pick Cal Poly over Sac State right now. I think Sac State's just too talented, so I'm going to go with Sac State. All right, next one. Another kind of boring matchup. Northern Arizona is going to Northern Colorado. What do you think?
I mean, Northern Colorado, man, I want to root for them. Uh, they've had some close games. They beat Weber State, which is I'll give it to them. But we'll see. Ed Lamb is a talented coach. I mean, he took Southern Utah to a few Big Sky titles, and I just don't feel like he has the players yet. Being like his second year of coaching, second or third. But NAU's a lot of talent, and they make good coaching decisions. Is it in Greeley or is it at Flagstaff? It's in
It
Greeley.
is. It's in
Yeah.
Greeley.
So yeah, I'd be interesting to see. I mean, obviously you're going to pick Northern Arizona to win the game. They're the ranked team. They're the one with the better record. They've beaten you know some good teams out there so far. Uh, but you never know. You never know. Northern Colorado always gets some freakishly close games for some reason. Last year that almost beat Idaho and Greeley. So uh, I would root for NAU, but I wouldn't say it'd be a big spread.
Right. That's kind of the Greeley factor for a lot of teams. Is like for whatever reason they go to Greeley and they just don't play their best game. Probably because not much of an environment there. You're going and playing a 1-9 team. It's pretty easy to lose focus if you're not a very, very, very disciplined team. Um,
Mm.
Obviously, I'm going to pick Northern Arizona. They have something to play for. Like they have an outside shot of getting into the playoffs if some things bounce their way. If they win out, which would include beating Eastern Washington, they are 8-4 with 71 wins. That's really, they really need some help, but they have something to play for. They have a reason to really get up for this game that some of the other teams maybe don't. So I think NAU wins this one, and I think they're able to run away with it pretty good. They're just talented. Northern Colorado isn't very talented. We saw that last week as Eastern fans, a team like Eastern that's 2-7, and they beat them by 30. So all right, next game. Let's go. What should we pick? Let's go Weber State at Idaho.
Man, I gotta take Idaho in this one. As much as I hate it, I mean, those are the two rivals that are playing, but Weber State is just not. They got so much talent. Richie Munez is a really good quarterback. He played really well last week. I mean, I went there. I went to the game. I saw it in person. Um, they just don't have the coaching there. And I mean, Weber's one of those teams where it's like, yeah, they're calling for the head coach to be fired. His seat's really hot in his second season, and they're starting to lose to some really embarrassing teams like Northern Colorado or McNeese State or Lamar, McNeese State not being that too much embarrassing, but like Lamar, not these teams aren't that very skilled. They're from different conferences, and so you don't want to lose. Especially being the power conference in the FCS, you don't want to lose to those teams from like SoCon and whatnot. But I mean, it's just I just don't think Weber takes it just in the fact that they don't have the coaching behind their talent, and going into the Kibby Dome when they're trying to make it 6-0 there, first time they've been undefeated at home in like 30 years. I think I think they're going to come out with a lot of heat. That's what they did there last year at Idaho State. Idaho State was talking some smack. We went up there, we're ready to win. Wanted that last game, and if there's anybody that plays on just hype, if there's anybody in the Big Sky that plays on hype, it's Idaho. And so they're going 6-0 in the dome. They're gonna bring the hype, and they're gonna roll over Weber. It's not gonna be close. It's gonna be a blowout in my opinion.
You see, this game, like, I was a student at Idaho for 2 years. This is a game that the Vandal fan in me is a little bit anxious about. If I'm, a Vandal fan, we don't know if Jack Lane is back. And if Jack Lane isn't back, Weber could easily stay in this game. Their defense has not been great this year and not been the same level as they're used to, but like their defense isn't god awful like an Eastern. And you know, their offenses, they've been able to generate some big plays and big moments. We saw that versus Montana. But generally, I like the matchup for Idaho. This just feels like a game where Weber State does something ridiculous and wins a game that they shouldn't. Idaho has been a team that in the Jason Eck era, they lose a game that they felt like they shouldn't later in the season, and it really hurts their playoff chances, or not the playoff chances necessarily, but it really hurts their seeding. And
Yeah,
last
let's
year
save
it
that
was
game for
Weber
Idaho
State.
State. So
Right. Well, I guess for you guys' sake, you want to save it for Idaho State, but to me, I mean, it could be Idaho State. I think the matchup is probably more Idaho State, but this feels like a game where Idaho could kind of shit the bed. I'm not going to pick it to happen. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen. But this is like if there's 2 games on the schedule, maybe one or 2 games on the schedule that you point to where maybe Idaho has a chance to go and lose a game that they really shouldn't. It's probably this Weber game. At least when I was looking at preseason, it's this Weber game, and it was the Eastern game. They got through the Eastern game barely. They got through Portland State barely. If they don't have Jack Wagner and the defense, I've heard mumblings that Andrew Marshall's back, their number 1 corner, but like if Marshall isn't back, Weber does have enough skill talent to make some plays. I think the bigger question is, will the offensive staff give those skill guys a chance? I don't necessarily think they will. So I think Idaho is going to win this game, but I think it's going to be a close game for at least 3/4 of this game. Idaho will pull away later in the game. I'm going to try to double dip this weekend and go to the Eastern game and the Idaho game. So I'm hoping it's kind of competitive in the second half. It would be fun, but I'm going to pick Idaho. I think it's a little bit friskier of a game than people might expect just looking at this. But I know Idaho fans are pretty anxious. But give me Idaho. All right. Next game, we got Portland State going to Montana. A little bit interesting here.
yeah, I mean, for me, this is one of the games I want to see an upset at. Portland State's a lot more talented than a lot of people think. I mean, they beat Idaho State. I'm not saying that just because they beat my team. I do recognize that they have a lot of talent, and it's mostly their offense. Dante Sastre, I'm surprised he's at Portland State because he's a really good QB. He should be somewhere else that can benefit from him a little bit more. I feel like, but I mean, he's a really good QB. He's got a good arm. He's not the most accurate, but he can make some good plays, on the throw. But where he really shines is on the run. And so Montana, their defense just looks weak this year. I mean, you saw him play against Eastern Washington. It was just points galore. Touchdowns, field goals. It's whatever. So I'm very interested to see Portland State's offense, kind of mixing with Montana's defense. But then again, I don't feel like Portland State has the best run defense either. Portland State has the worst defense in the FCS ranked, and so we'll see what some veterans on the Montana team can do, like Junior Berggren, and get out there and run all over them. But I really want Portland State to win. Is the game at Waugeriz or is that PSU?
At Waugeriz.
It's at Waugeriz. Man, if I don't think that Montana's already lost 2 games at Waugeriz this year, and so seeing that, it'd be nice for them to pull the upset. That Montana just lost to UC Davis at home, and so I think it's gonna be definitely close, but I don't think they're gonna want to lose at home again. So I'll take Montana on this one, but I'll be very I would put Montana upset alert for sure.
Yeah, I'm in a similar headspace as you. I think this matchup is interesting, and I think if Portland State is one of those teams, like you said, that like they're a lot better than 2-7, shows you at least talent wise. And Sachere, he is, man, he's a guy that he has like the potential to win Offensive Player of the Year in the Big Sky on a 2-7 or a 2-10 team at the end of the year. Like that's like a realistic thing that could potentially happen. Will it happen? Probably not, but he has the yardage to do that, and the number, like he's accounted for like almost 30 touchdowns, I think, at this point in the year, or 25 touchdowns, which is kind of nuts. But the matchup's interesting. Montana's defense has just been flat out bad this year, dude. They gave up 55 points to Weber State. They gave up 49 points to Eastern. They gave up 20 points to a hobbled NAU team that they're down their starting quarterback. The defense started to play a little bit better. They showed a little bit in the first half versus UC Davis, playing a little bit of bend but don't break defense, but they just aren't the same level that they've been in years past. I don't think they're bad enough to lose to a very one-dimensional Portland State team. But man, if there's ever a week where it'd be really, really funny for Montana to drop a game, and I mean, if they lose this game, they'd be on the playoff bubble, like hoping to get in, and they're gonna get in because they're Montana. But I don't see them beating Montana State. Portland State is kind of like a very, 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 very watered down version of Montana State. Kind of an interesting thing to see. I think this game is pretty competitive, and then in the second half, Montana will pull away a little bit. They'll make a few plays. The big intrigue here is like, what are they going to do with the quarterbacks? Are they going to just stick with one guy? That guy should probably be Logan Fife. I have a feeling they mix the quarterbacks up again, or they start Ayat, and it's going to infuriate people. But that is, for whatever reason, Bobby Houck always is doing the opposite of what the fans want when it comes to quarterback play. So I'm going to take Montana. I'm going to take it in a really like a game that is way too close for comfort for Grizz fans and should not be that close. All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Big Sky, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're an Idaho State fan, you want Montana to lose. A lot of people like to say, I'm just gonna rant on about it a little bit here, but not too long. A lot of people say that like Idaho State's out of the playoff conversation. I would say it's leaning more that way, but a 7-win team can make the playoffs realistically. There's a lot of teams that do it every single year. With the Big Sky being a power conference, you get a lot of bids anyways. But if you're Idaho State and you want the planets to align, I think you want Portland State to pull off this upset. So let's root for them for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're a Big Sky fan, you should always be rooting against the Grizz. That's for sure. I don't care who they're playing. I'm rooting against the Grizz. All right. Big Sky game of the week this week. Massive. It's the Big Sky championship game. Montana State traveling down to Davis. Montana's 10-0. UC Davis 9-1. Their one loss being to Cal. Montana State 2 seed right now, or the number 2 ranking. UC Davis the number 4 ranking in some polls, number 5 ranking in some polls. They just pulled off a big win over Montana and Waugeriz. How do you see this game going? This should be a really fun one.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, it stinks that College Game Day didn't go there this week. Like, man, did they just lose all their fun. You used to go to FCS games last year. They missed out on one. They got the Big Sky Championship right here. UC Davis is obviously going to beat Sac State, and I'd be surprised if Montana State doesn't roll Montana at home. But I mean, this game, I think it's really interesting. I'm not really sure on this one. I know UC Davis is a really good team this year, and but they like to play down a little bit. I feel like, except this last game at Montana, but they had some close games, against Idaho and against Portland State. Montana State just looking like that team. They're one of the few 10-0 teams in the entire country, all divisions. Uh, I'm just not too sure, man. I just don't know what to pick. Montana State, they can get locked on down on their running game pretty easily. UC Davis has that running game. They have one of the best running backs in the conference. They have the best QB in the conference. So I'd expect a lot of offensive play from them. And I'm not too sure about Montana State. I feel like it's a lot easier to stop their type of offense. Uh, but I'm not really sure who I pick on this one. I'm just gonna choose who I like, more. I like UC Davis more, kind of the underdog team. Been 9-1. Montana State's been glazed all season. You know, they're 10-0, and so take UC Davis, Cody Hawkins, Dan Hawkins, their previous spot, and I'll take him to win. I like Templar. I think he's a good coach, and I think people need to throw some respect on his name as well. So.
I'm going to pick Montana State, and here's why. Montana State, to me, watching the film, is the most impressive team in the FCS, and it's not super close in my opinion. Now, the caveat is they've done this against teams that have just flat out have not been good, and the only like top ish team that they've played all year has been Idaho, and Idaho was kind of a no-show that night. That they went up to Bozeman in a game that felt like it might be the Big Sky Championship game at that point in the season. Hasn't turned out to be, but I think Montana State is just really good, guys. I think, Tommy Mellott is playing as the best version of Tommy Mellott I've seen. He's playing at another level this year. He's probably up there. He's up there for the Walter Payton Award candidate right now, with the amount of touchdowns he's scored, and it's only really been in. He's only played like a full game like 3 times in this whole season. So I think Montana State is just better than UC Davis right now. I think they're going to dominate the line of scrimmage. I don't trust UC Davis's front offensive line very much, and I think there's absolutely a chance that UC Davis wins this game. I don't think it's a lot of Bobcat fans are like, oh, UC Davis is going to have to play perfect to have a chance. No, this is going to be a competitive game. I think UC Davis is pretty good too. I think they have a really good defense. One of the more, people have been talking about it more now, but they have one of the better defenses in the whole country, in my opinion, when it comes to, they have the best safety pair in the country. Probably they have the best pair of linebackers in the Big Sky Conference. And when you have that plus a solid D line, like it makes for a pretty damn good defense. Montana, the one thing that is interesting about this to me is like Montana State, they run the ball a lot. UC Davis has stopped the run extremely effectively these last couple weeks against Eastern, against they played Northern Colorado, against I think they played Cal Poly in there as well, and then they played Montana, and they have just shut down the run ever since both Connors brothers are back. Plus David Myers is a really good player, and their D line is just really good against the run. They're not exactly like elite pass rushers, but they have a guy like Princeton Toki he's at like 6 foot, 200 or 370 pound dude in the middle that you look at and you're like, damn. And then he moves way faster than you expect a guy that big to be able to move. I think Montana State just has another level that they haven't hit yet in terms of they haven't really played a competitive game. And I think once they play a competitive game, we'll actually see the full kind of wrath of a Montana State team. We saw glances of it when they came to Cheney, actually. I think we saw a little bit more of their playbook open up a little bit, and they started to kind of dominate up front later in that game. I just think their offensive line I think their offensive line might be the best in the country this year. That combined with, I think they have the best running back room in the country this year, probably. It's up there. and I think they have one of the better quarterbacks in the country this year, especially on the ground. I just think they win this one, and I think they generate explosive runs, and generally I just think they're the better team. Um, the caveat, the caveat is if Davis can shut down their run game, things get interesting. The Tommy Malot's been so much better through the air this year. I don't see it mattering a ton. I just think Montana State is just on a whole nother level. So I'm going to pick Montana State in this one. You have any more to add?
Yeah, I mean, I was wanting to hear your opinion. The game's getting played in California, so what do you think that type of environment is going to be like down there?
So UC Davis is kind of notorious for being like the most like the nicest place to play in terms of like they're a very friendly place to go to. They're trying like Coach Plow wants to kind of change that, but like that's kind of what they're known for. So I don't think the environment, I really don't think the environment has a huge factor on the game like it would be if it's in Bozeman or if it's Missoula or hell even I mean like even Cheney is a place that for whatever reason just has a little bit of an effect on the game. I don't think it has a huge effect on the game really. I think it might have a little bit, and being able to wake up in your own bed like that does factor into things, but I think Montana State's a damn good team. They're coached well. They're just their play calling and their offense has taken another step this year. The defense has taken a step this year. They look more. Uh, they're not as bend but don't break, but they're a little bit more aggressive, and it allows them to, not get killed by the death by a thousand paper cuts. It also lets them stop the big plays pretty well, and they've just been pretty damn impressive. I've been blown away by the film of Montana State. I came into the year a little bit skeptical of them. I thought they had the schedule to kind of walk their way to this, which they kind of have, but I've been pretty blown away with the film. I just think Montana State's so much better of a team. I don't think the environment really matters. I don't think the opponent matters. I think they're going to win the game. I think they're going to walk their way to the semifinals, to be honest. So, um, I think that's all we got for that game. You got anything else?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, uh, everything's UC Davis defense pretty good. Montana State runs the ball, but Tommy Malot's looking a lot better this year. So uh, I think you should definitely tune into this game if you want to watch a good football game on Saturday.
Dude, absolutely.
Stay away
Should
from
be
the
really
FBS.
fun.
Watch some more FCS.
That's what I'm saying. The FBS sucks now. I don't even like watching FBS at all anymore. All right. Our game of the week, Idaho State at Eastern Washington. Give me what you think is going to happen. Give me your pick for this game. I have a feeling that you're going to pick Idaho State, but what do you think is going to happen in this one?
I mean, keys to the game. Uh, Idaho State's first of all, they're never out of a game. In the Big Sky, they always like to make things interesting, keep it close. Keys to the game, run the ball a bit more. Lock down on those third down uh, stands, and I think we should do this. It's gonna be really cold up in Cheney, but I mean, it's been freezing in Pocatello. It snowed yesterday, and so they've been practicing outside. They're getting ready for that. Idaho State also just has a lot more to play for. Being on just like right on the fence of like, oh, they're probably not a playoff team, but maybe they can make some noise during the end of the season and really persuade the voters a little bit. Eastern, 3 wins on the season. Looking a little bit like last year, where they're gonna not finish at the bottom of the Big Sky, but closer towards the bottom. They've had a hard schedule. They want to win. They want to win some games too. Um, I definitely think if Idaho State can win the turnover battle, get some takeaways, and play like they did last week, play like they did against Sacramento State. Heck, even NAU. Play like they did those teams, and are hungry for a win. We can definitely take that game away from Eastern. We want the first win on this whole season. We had a common theme of Idaho Poly at Cal Poly since like 2006. First win in Ogden against Weber State in like 1984. Since 2002. So
Yeah, it's also kind of been an opposite type of year for Eastern. Like they've been kind of some of the streaks that they've had have been being broken. Like Eastern had never lost a game to UC Davis until this year. Eastern had never been beaten on the red by Montana until this year. I feel like this could be one of those streaks that might actually be brought up like in the building this week.
Mhm.
You know, you mentioned that Cheney or Eastern doesn't have a ton to play for. I think the one thing that they do have to play for is it's senior day, last time on the red for a lot of these seniors. But the other thing is, I think they might be playing for their head coach. They might be playing for his career because I don't. His contract's expiring, and he has not done a ton this year to, really inspire people to believe he deserves to come back. Will he come back? That's a whole nother story. But I think some of these guys are playing for the seniors. They're playing for the coaches, and obviously it's a little different than like playing for a playoff berth. But I do think that matters. Also, it's a little bit of pride. Like you really don't want your head coach's last ever game, a guy that's been here for 28 years, to get beat by Idaho State on the red. That would just suck. And if that happens, I would feel horrible for Coach Best. In terms of the actual game, I like Eastern's chances to be able to dominate the offensive and defensive lines. I think Eastern's defensive line's been one of the more underrated units, just because I feel like the Eastern linebacker core has been like really pretty bad, and so like even when the D line does things well, doesn't matter because the guy behind them's not making the tackle. Um, I think Eastern has a chance to dominate the lines of scrimmage and kind of control this game, like we saw a little bit versus Idaho State when they played Portland State. I think Eastern's a pretty analogous team to Portland State this year. They're a little bit less like explosive in the run game, but they're going to run the ball like 50, 60 times probably. And for whatever reason, those running teams tend to beat the throwing teams for what I don't like. It doesn't make a ton of sense sometimes. Like it feels like if a team throws the ball really effective, a lot of the time they should be able to outscore the team that runs the ball. For whatever reason, the run the ball team tends to come out on top a lot of the time. Um, I think Eastern is going to win this game. I'm going to pick Eastern to win this game, but I do not think it's going to be. I do not think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think it's going to be similar to that Portland State game. I think it's going to be a really close battle all the way throughout. I think towards the end of the game is where Eastern finally makes a push to give themselves a lead or to give themselves like a 2-possession lead late to be able to kind of to put the game away. And just I think they're just going to pound the rock. Getting a guy like Malik Dotson back is huge. You have Jared Taylor. I mean, Jared Taylor's been taking a lot of reps with the ones. I have a feeling that there's a chance Jared Taylor starts this game and just runs the ball every play. They might come out in a freaking triple option. Who knows? Tuna Altair is still there. I think he's more of a backup role now than anything. You have a guy like Eastern starting safety at the start of the year is now playing a little bit of running back. Like, Eastern's going to run the heck out of the ball. The entire offensive line is seniors. I think that matters and on senior day, and against a team that they really think they have a chance to run the ball against. So I'm going to pick Eastern. I think they dominate on the ground. I think it's a really fun game, and everyone should go tune into this game because it's going to be a freaking blast, I'm sure. Do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be cold. Idaho State's last 5 games have been within 1 score. Weber should have been, 15, instead of 8. But all 4 games before that were within 4 points. So I think it's definitely going to be close, especially with the chance of it going to snow, towards the end of the game. I think the weather is going to be a factor there. It's going to be a fun game to watch on TV, man. And is it going to be dark at all, by the time the game ends?
Right towards the end of the game, it'll probably start getting dark. It shouldn't. I don't think it'll be fully dark by the end of the game, but it'll be close.
Yeah. So I mean, it should be a really fun game to watch. I think everybody should tune in to that game. I feel like it's going to be one of the more closer games in the Big Sky this week. So
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way. Should be a fun one. Eagle fans, get to Roost. This is your last time to watch Efton Chisholm in person, probably, unless you're making the trek to Northern Arizona. This is the last time you're going to see Efton Chisholm on the red. This is your last time you're going to see the entire offensive line on the red. This is your last time you're probably going to see Tuna Alta here. A lot of Eagle seniors. This is like a Brock Harrison. A lot of these guys that have been here for years, kind of the last remaining guys of the 2021 playoff team. A couple of the guys were Like Darian Sampson was a guy that was on the 2018 national championship team, 7th-year seniors. Like he's playing finally his last game on the Reds. So get to Roos, go support the seniors, support these guys. There's a chance this is Aaron Best's last game on the Red. I know some Eagle fans have a little bit of hostility towards him just because of where the program's at, but that dude has been a member of our community for damn near 30 years. I have a lot of respect for him, and I want to give him a little bit of support if he is on his way out the door. But I think that's all we got. Do you have any last thoughts? Give yourself a little bit of a shout out. Give the Jungleland a shout out before we close it out.
Yeah, I mean, come listen to Jungleland. I think we're going tomorrow, Thursday, at around 8:30. I'm pretty sure it's after the Big Sky Volleyball Championship, pretty much against Northern Colorado. So we'll tune in. It's on Twitter Spaces, so come check it out and just go Bengals.
Yeah, and I will probably make an appearance on that if people are wanting to listen to it. It'd be Thursday night, 8:30-ish Pacific time on the Jungleland Twitter account. If you want to listen live, it's if you haven't used Twitter Spaces, it's almost like a little bit of like a radio show. It's like a live podcast. And
Yeah.
I mean, if stuff gets wild, sometimes they'll just throw random people in the chat to talk. So sometimes that's fun if you want to come listen and rant about Aaron Best or something. So if you want to do that, come check us out Thursday night. All right. I think that's all we got, guys. Thanks everyone for listening. I will be back early next week with the Idaho State recap, talk a little bit of basketball, but yeah, that's all we got for you guys. Thanks everyone for listening, and go Eags.